You know the pattern. You start, you get frustrated, then you quit. Then you declare yourself a complete failure. In today's forecast, we see that I am still a disappointment with a 90% chance of overthinking and scattered gusts of fake motivation. Bring an umbrella, it's raining bad decisions out here. I've been there. I would start something and go hard for a few weeks, hit a wall, and then get pissed off and quit. I kept failing because I was trying to eat the whole pizza in one bite instead of picking up one slice like a normal person. I could see the whole outcome super clearly, but I couldn't see the first 3 steps. So my brain just freaked out and called it proof that I suck. My brain loves a good self-drag. It's like her hobby. She's really dramatic, actually. She throws her head back and screams for snacks. I want cheese! It all comes from knowing that you just proved yourself right. Again, that you can't follow through, that you are indeed a big old failure. Not because you actually failed, but because no one tells you that success looks a lot like nothing for a really long time. I'm seeing this a lot lately in my one-on-ones, and so I wanted to pick this apart with you before it gets too comfortable. I used to do this constantly, and now I figured out how to stop being such a disaster about it. I want to tell you that frustration isn't proof that you're doing it wrong. It's proof that you tried to eat the whole damn pizza in one bite. And instead of spitting it out and taking a smaller bite, you choke, you give up, and then you go down a Google rabbit hole of why am I like this? Like you're trying to diagnose your own personality and check to see if there's a brain recall and you can go get a new one. And you will stay in that loop. Start, get frustrated, quit, hate yourself, because you're convinced that slow progress is the same thing as no progress, which is a lie, but it's a convincing one. And the quitting, it's not even satisfying. There's no relief, no closure. You just sit there with your coffee, staring at the abandoned thing, wondering if this is just who you are now. Someone who can't finish anything except maybe a bag of sugar-free Twizzlers in one sitting. Like it's a permanent character flaw instead of just a terrible strategy. Here's the thing. Frustration doesn't mean you're failing. I do have a fix for this, and it's way less exhausting than whatever you've been trying. That's coming up. The villain here isn't quitting. It's not that you stopped. It's the story that you attach to the stopping. You take a pause and immediately promote it to a verdict, right? See, I knew I couldn't do it. Dude, stop. You're just hitting the edge of your current capacity. It's okay to take a beat. The truth is, most of us don't quit because it's impossible. We quit because we can't stomach how unglamorous progress actually feels. You think that you're going to feel like Rocky, right? Running up the stairs while singing Eye of the Tiger. But it's more like doing one jumping jack in your living room and realizing too late that you're not wearing the right bra and oh crap, that's going to leave a bruise. All the while your dog watches, unimpressed. I know she was laughing in dog, which is pretty rude considering she eats bunny poop. There's a part of your brain that only respects results big enough to brag about. If it's not dramatic, fast, or impressive, then you decide it doesn't count. The lie that you've been sold, by yourself mostly, is simple. If you can't do it all right now, it's not worth starting. This is basically the motivational equivalent of telling a toddler if you can't run a marathon, why even bother learning to walk? You believe that lie, that success is some magical switch that flips the moment that you go all in. And if it doesn't flip, well, then obviously you're not cut out for it. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. Nobody paints a masterpiece in one sitting unless the painting is literally like a red dot. And even then, they probably had to restart it 3 different times because the dot kept looking slightly off. And who says that's a masterpiece anyway? So you wait for the fantasy version of you who has boundless energy, total clarity, and a color-coded plan that she updates daily. She's not coming. She's blocked your number. She moved. I used to live in that lie. Every big thing that I wanted turned into a race. And if I couldn't see the finish line right away, I'd bail. I turned quitting into proof that I just didn't have what it takes, right? Which is ridiculous because I've been loyal to absolute nonsense in other parts of my life, but apparently I can't be loyal to myself. But here's the part that keeps you stuck. You don't just quit. You attach that failure to your identity. You're not disciplined enough. You can't stick to anything. You decide that the problem is you, which just makes it easier to believe that you shouldn't start again. Turns out that the thing that gets you moving again has nothing to do with motivation, and you're not going to believe how small the first step actually is. Here's what I know now. Momentum comes from movement, not willpower, not manifesting, one small, boring, finishable step, and then maybe another. Or maybe not. Who knows? That's fine. One step counts. One step is the only thing that counts. And I know that that sounds like an elderly kindergarten teacher would cross-stitch it on a pillow, but hear me out. I still remember my kindergarten teacher's name. It was Mrs. Deering. She played piano every morning and made us sing. I used to get in trouble a lot. Every finished thing that you've ever admired was built in pieces by someone who got bored, took breaks, maybe even hated the process, but they kept taking one more step. The difference is they didn't mistake something taking longer than they thought it was going to for being a failure. You want proof? Think about everything that you've already done that didn't count, right? The 5-minute dishwasher load that got rid of that weird smell in your house. The 2 emails that you answered that made tomorrow a little bit less annoying. The walk that didn't fix your mood, but it did keep it from getting worse. Those weren't heroic, they were boring, and they worked. Now that you know what it is, how many times have you found yourself stuck in that start, frustrate, quit loop? Share it with me in the comments. Let's commiserate. Frustration isn't proof that you're broken. It's proof that you picked a bite too big for right now. And instead of spitting it out and cutting it smaller, you decide that you're just unfit to eat it all. That's like saying that you're bad at hiking because that mountain made you sweat. This is where you start seeing other people's after pictures and thinking that they just woke up one day with a finished book or a toned body or a thriving business. You don't see the months or years that they spent staring at the wall, convincing themselves that they were terrible at it. You just assume that they're built different and you're built to fail. You're basically running a grief counseling session for all your abandoned goals. Hi, I'm Sheila, and I bought a yoga mat in 2022. It's still in the plastic wrapper, judging me from the closet. And that's where frustration turns toxic, because now every time you try something new, you're dragging this bloated corpse of every past attempt behind you. It's not just I didn't finish, it's I never finish. That lie is what keeps the loop running, and it's why most people aren't failing because they're incapable. They're failing because they've decided it's pointless unless it's instant. You need to take a bite so small that it's almost embarrassing and then let that be enough. Seriously, it is. Open the document, circle the due date, put your shoes by the front door. If the step feels a little bit insulting to your ego, then you're probably doing it right. But Sheila, won't that take forever? Maybe, but forever is still faster than never. And let's be honest, you've been choosing never with flair for years. The goal isn't to be impressive. The goal is to be in motion. Now, the fix isn't some epic realization or heroic burst of willpower. It's actually something so simple it feels like cheating. Watch what happens when you lower the bar to something real. Frustration stops being a verdict and goes back to being a signal that you picked a bite that's too big. So, break the loop, start, expect the frustration, and when it shows up, don't make it a judgment, make it a sizing issue. Cut the step in half, then in half again if you need to. Take the smallest bite, swallow, and count it. You don't have a discipline problem. You have a biting off more than you can chew and then choking on it problem. You're basically trying to eat the whole elephant and then wondering why your jaw hurts. The problem isn't your mouth. It's your menu planning. You've been grading yourself on outcomes you can't reach yet and ignoring the steps that you can actually finish today. That's how good people talk themselves out of their dreams and goals. The big picture is a liar. It's clean, shiny, and conveniently skips the part where you have 3 false starts, 13 meltdowns, and you ugly cry over nothing because you're tired. Real progress is messy. It's lopsided. It happens in fits and starts, and it's usually missing one very important screw. One step done is infinitely better than 0 steps perfect. That's it. That's the whole trick. But here's the thing I need to say out loud. Sometimes the goal itself is the problem. Sometimes you're not failing because you're taking bites that are too big. You're choking because you're trying to swallow something that was never meant for you in the first place. And if you need help making that first step actually happen, here's what works for me. Write down your goal. Not in your head, because your head is where good intentions go to die. Put it on paper, put it in your notes app, on the back of a receipt, anywhere that exists outside your brain. Because once it's written, you can actually break it into pieces that you can finish. So let's use a really basic, harmless example, okay? Cleaning the kitchen. If you define your goal, you'll know when you're done instead of wondering why you've been cleaning for 3 weeks straight. Take that monster task and break it down until it feels ridiculous. I'm talking illegal levels of small. And if your first task is still clean the kitchen, congratulations, you have already failed the assignment. Put mugs in dishwasher, wipe counter, sweep floor, wipe stove, wipe fridge, throw out the one fork I hate. You have one. I know you do. And I'm not judging. Mine is shaped like someone described a fork to an alien who was only half paying attention. Give it a deadline, but a real one. Not the delusional kind where you think that you'll suddenly become a better person at 6 a.m. on Monday. You have never been that person. Cut it out. Monday morning you is a fictional character who lives in your head and lies about everything. She's basically a life coach with no credentials running a scam on your Tuesday self. Now, this part matters. I want you to celebrate every tiny freaking win on the way to that clean kitchen. Tell yourself, good job. Let yourself feel good because you're making progress. Load a cup, good job. Pick up something off the floor instead of ignoring it, you're killing it. Your brain doesn't give a shit if the dopamine comes from cleaning the whole kitchen or just scraping off that one sticky spot that you've been ignoring since last Thanksgiving. If you can train your brain to register progress on something as small as wiping off a counter, it's a lot harder for it to gaslight you into thinking that you're not doing enough everywhere else. And sometimes the real win isn't finishing. It's finally admitting that the goal was never yours to begin with. There's a difference between I can't do this right now and I don't want to do this anymore. One needs smaller bites, the other needs permission to walk away. If you've been grinding at the same thing for years and you're hating every minute of it, maybe it's time to spit it out entirely. Don't overcomplicate it. I know that's the hardest part, but each win builds momentum. It builds confidence. And for the love of God, stop rewarding yourself with a new impossible list the second you finish something. Let the win breathe for 5 minutes before you ruin it. Don't be some kind of productivity masochist. You're not supposed to feel ready for all of it. You're supposed to feel ready for one of it. And yeah, that's going to look stupid small in the moment, right? Answering one email, writing one paragraph, finally opening the spreadsheet. But if you stack enough of those stupid small things, suddenly you're the person who followed through. The big picture is always seductive because it doesn't have the tedious stuff or the false starts baked in. Real progress does. Real progress has bloopers and cursing. Ask me how I know. So if today all you've got in you is moving the needle by the width of a paperclip, do it anyway. Tomorrow's paperclip then is that much closer. And just when you think you've hacked the system with small wins, you realize that the system that you've been trying to survive was never built for you in the first place. We keep sanding down our goals, making them smaller and smaller, trying to make them doable without ever asking why they were impossible to begin with. And at some point, you'll realize that you're not just fighting procrastination. You're fighting the fact that the entire way you've been told to do adulthood is rigged to keep you chasing, not finishing. Let's talk about that here.